Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Chetawanze.
All right, so this is our last episode for the year when we hang up the podcast mics.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. Where's I mean, on the last episode for the year, you're dressed in all black. What happened to your Christmas cheer? Where's your Christmas jumper?
Black retains heat.
Yeah, but no when there's no sun, to get that. Where is
So
he
that the
getting
little heat
from?
that it take and I can get it will not leave my body now. I mean, come on, you take pity on me. I'm just coming from nice sunny environments where NEPA was dealing with us, but at least we could get cheap labor to fan us if needed.
So you went to engage in cheap labor. Do we have you on the record saying that, Cheta?
I didn't say anything. I just said that cheap labor is part of the core in that part of the world. It's something you can't avoid. So, for example, the megad in front of your gates, that's cheap labor.
And so you were sitting in front of your gates and the megad was funny.
It's you that's putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm just following on. I'm trying to understand what you mean.
The megad cannot be fanning me and all the other people in the compound now.
So all of you were fanning yourselves. You were sat around in the circle and everyone was fanning each other.
That counts as telling tales by moonlight.
Interesting. Anyway, so with
the mosquitoes singing very good music in our ears.
Right, so what do you want to talk about today?
So while I was away, I noticed that you people's king talked about his cancer diagnosis, and it brought me back to something that happened. One of the episodes we covered some time ago when Nigeria's former president Buhari died, and the propensity for African leaders to behave like supermen. Also, at the same time, the UK published unemployment figures, and it's something that's it's at 5.4% or thereabouts, and it's something that I would like us to discuss. Is it 5.4 or 5.1?
It's 5.1%.
Just over 5%. 5.1%.
Yeah.
It's something I would like us to talk about as well.
All right. So where do you want to start with? Where do we start with on this half? Do you want to go the health route?
You lead.
Or do you want to go the unemployment route? Which one is the happier one, so that perhaps we end on something of an almost happy cheer?
Both.
None is happy, is it?
None is happy.
Like this episode is Grinch that wants to steal the Christmas cheer.
Well, I wouldn't say so.
Looks like you have some lovely interference in the backyard.
Yes, my boy is doing some of his assigned tasks. So which involves cleaning out my study. So my own version of cheap labor here is he's old enough to.
You're leaning into all the Christmas stereotypes. First, you're Grinch, then you're Ebenezer Scrooge.
Well, I mean, Ebenezer Scrooge is one of my favorite all-time characters, actually.
Is all right.
Yes, so very top guy. Anyway, so let's start with the health thing. Because I think that's it's a deep tradition that our people in the diaspora need to do a lot of work to change, because it speaks to a deeper malaise, if I'm to say, in the societies that we come from. A malaise that needs many people that I've noticed from our neck of the woods tends to behave like they're Superman, and that's something that needs they're talking about.
Yeah. So for those who may not be clued in, King Charles spoke to Channel 4 about his cancer treatment. He was diagnosed with non-melanoma skin cancer and underwent treatment successfully. And I remember, I think it was last year when he first opened up about this. It was celebrated is not the right word, but his openness, yes, his openness rather was celebrated, and men were told to, or people generally were told to be open about having these conversations because, as we say in Nigeria, a closed mouth is a closed destiny, isn't it? But
Yes.
then also juxtapose that with the health secretary, West Streeting, who also has spoken about his own cancer treatment. If I'm not mistaken, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer as a teenager, and I
And
think
had
recently
surgery.
he and had surgery, and he recently sent an update. He put up an update, I think 2 or 3 days ago, saying he was all clear. But it's
Okay,
just
I missed that completely, but
yeah.
because I know that he had unless testicular or kidney cancer. I think it was kidney cancer. One of his kidneys was removed. But bottom line is that he's had cancer. And
Mm.
I think the important thing is West Stratton is a young man. He's your age mates. In the village
Are we being ageist here?
setting, I'll be patting your head and his head. Um,
Oh, sorry. It was kidney cancer. I don't know why I got testicular from. My apologies. It was
Yeah, no, no,
kidney
I
cancer.
mean, and one of his kidneys was removed
Mm,
because the cancer had reached it, but it was diagnosed relatively early.
mm,
Um, and then you want to also juxtapose it with the former Prime Minister David Cameron, who had early form early form of prostate cancer that was caught because
mm,
he went for a checkup. And for me, the main effect of all of these things is that it increased awareness of these various conditions, and a lot of people have gone to do checks on themselves. And I think that's the important thing that leadership does. Circling it back to our community, um, our own leaders in that part of the world like to behave like supermen. So, strong criticism to the current president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. Everybody knows that there's something wrong,
mm,
but nobody knows what it is. He disappears to France, especially for days on end for checkup. And his predecessor, Buhari, did the same
mm.
thing, only that Buhari was not disappearing to France, he was disappearing to the UK.
The UK, yeah.
Um, and it's something that is
And if
problematic.
sorry, if you go back 2 presidents before Buhari, Yar'Adua,
Yaradua, yes.
who I think used to disappear to
He
Saudi, or we
Saudi
didn't,
Arabia,
yeah.
yes, it was Saudi, and he eventually died of peritonitis. Now, uh, it's very important for leaders, and it's not just national leaders, but also community leaders, to be very open about their health condition, because first and foremost, the human body is a machine. And like any machine, it breaks down every once in a while. You are not Superman, you are not God. You will have health conditions. And those health conditions, if we go back into politics briefly, those health conditions could be the determinants of a lot of political stuff. So think about when Yaradua was ill, and basically the government shut down because there was a cabal that was controlling power, and a lot of documents got signed. There were accusations that a lot of documents got signed illegally and all of that good stuff. So it's this secrecy. And it's not just a Nigerian thing. Of course, we would always tend to talk about Nigeria because that's where we're both from. But think of Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. Think of John Magaful in Malawi. Think of Paul Biya in
Mm,
Cameroon. Paul Biya doesn't even live in Cameroon anymore. The last presidential election, which he won in quotes,
mm,
he did not show up until a week to the election, and then he didn't even go on campaign. Those kind of things. And so you can basically turn a health issue into a political crisis, and
mm,
people die because of those things. So from the community aspect, I think that's something that we can learn as a people is how to be open about our health. Very, very important because it helps first and foremost with continuity.
mm,
The logic of secrecy does us no good. And because of that secrecy habit, we end up in a situation where we don't fund our health system properly. I mean, look at, and I think something that we should fear into is the fact that, so doctors, resident doctors in the UK have voted to go on strike.
Mm.
They will go on strike for 5 days, starting from the 17th, I think, and they will come back just before Christmas.
Mm.
The health secretary did everything he could. Ultimately, the doctors decided that his offer was not good enough. I'm not going to go into the politics or the depth of whether the offer was good enough or all of that. The point is, everything was handled transparently, and you could see, even if it was, even if it was feigned, even if it was a pretense, you could see the care. Oh, we don't want these doctors to go on strike. Contrasts with our neck of the woods, where, oh, if they want to go on strike, FM, let them go. No, no problems. In short, as a matter of fact, my tailor is a qualified medical doctor, but look at, he sews very good clothes for me. A serving minister in Nigeria once said that.
Mm.
So when you have that kind of behavior, there's it's no it's not surprising that our health system is where it is, and a lot of our doctors. So one of the big ironies of the whole thing was that Buhari was treated by Nigerian doctors in the UK. Nigerian doctors who had escaped from Nigeria. And another thing that's, so it's again, and forgive me if I seem to be jumping all over, because I remember reading, and it was not a Nigerian leader who said this. I think it was not Ghanaian either. But there was, I think it was a Ghanaian civil servant, a senior Ghanaian civil servant, when they asked him about all this health thing, and he was like, "Oh, one of the reasons I don't want to go to hospitals in my country is because people will." The hospitals would tell the newspapers my health condition. Like, haba.
No, but in fact, it's quite interesting what you said. So two things. One, and I'll come back. The issue of the healthcare provision being so terrible, which is maybe perhaps why they want to go abroad. Because I say this because I remember the reaction of a few Nigerians when Keir Starmer said categorically during the election campaign that if any of his loved ones was in serious trouble, he would have them treated at the NHS rather than private. Now, and people were like, "Oh my goodness, how can you say that?" But it was quite interesting because I don't think a lot of people realize just the sort of investment that goes into the National Health Service to make it fit enough for a prime minister to say categorically, "Yes, I would rather my loved ones were treated in this public hospital as well than go private." Now, contrast that with what happens in Nigeria. You don't even need to be, or other African countries, to
Not
be
just in
honest.
Nigeria, to be honest.
Yes. You don't have to be a very rich person to go private, because your first thought is, you know what, I'm going to go private because there's so much underdevelopment or underinvestment in the healthcare. But the other thing, going to this chap who has said he doesn't want his illness leaked to the media. Vladimir Putin reportedly has someone who carries what is called a poop bag. Because whenever he travels out of Russia and takes a dump, it's collected because he doesn't want anyone figuring out if he has a flu or whatever it is through his an examination of his fecal matter. So perhaps that's what this person is thinking of and saying, "Look, you know what? I don't want
So,
anyone to know if I have this. So let me just go
but
abroad where
Vladimir
there's."
Putin has a standard clinic inside the Kremlin that does all his treatments. And don't forget, he's in his 70s, so he will have some of the natural, the things that's called natural with old age. I think it's a bit of a red herring to compare an autocrat, which is what
Oh, no. I'm not
Vladimir
saying.
Putin is, to what we
No,
are
no, no.
supposed to have in our neck of the woods, which
Mm.
are supposed to be democratically elected
Oh no,
leaders that are
that was
accountable
me.
to the people.
No, that was me taking the piss.
Okay.
Because really, definitely, because think about it. What are we going to do with somebody's health. I mean,
It's,
especially
I mean,
when
I
wh-
mean, if we want to lean in on that example, his poop can be analyzed. I mean, when you are doing, I started doing annual health checks when I turned 40,
Mm,
and one of the things that they analyze, they ask me, they give me a bottle, pee inside, they give me a
mhm,
small canister.
mhm.
When you, that's one of the most I hate that particular job, but hey, it has to be done. You dump in
Oh,
the
oh
toilet, and
no, no.
before you,
Let me.
so
That's not even the bad part. And perhaps we'll get to it when we talk about why it's not just the
some
leaders
people
who
might
have.
be listening to this while they're eating.
Well, sorry, man. This is one. It's a joyful episode, but it's not even just you doing your annual health check because that's something that we should do, and it's not just the leaders who are not getting treated at home or thinking of getting treated at home because they just don't trust the system they're supposed to oversee, but there's also something inherently um inherent in our community when it comes to being against medical checkups. I'll give you an example. I did a prostate check some years ago because, of course, when you're from a neck of the woods, you do your prostate when you turn 40, as against here in the UK where it's advised
So
that they
you
do it
turned
at
40
50.
some years ago.
Yeah, Cheta, I know I look young, but hey.
No,
But anyway.
because in the last episode, we had this little kerfuffle. Was it the
Mm,
episode before last, where I
mm.
said that we're both middle-aged, and you denied you denied very vociferously. But now you're admitting that you turned 40 some years
Ah,
ago.
so
Just
this
needed
is
to
bad.
point that out.
This is bad politicking from me. I should remember my sleight of words better.
Anyway,
But but anyway, so
in terms of
uh, yeah.
concealing health conditions,
Mm.
the list from our continent is long and proud.
Oh, it's long.
Since most of Africa turns to quote unquote democracy, and the nice events that happened in Benin and Guinea-Bissau over the last few weeks is beginning to put or is further putting more question marks on that.
Mm,
Um, we had Umaru Yar'Adua, Muhammadu Buhari, and Bola Tinubu from Nigeria concealing health stuff.
mm,
We had John Atta Mills from Ghana concealing health stuff. And in short, he like Yar'Adua, he ended up dying in office
mm.
after concealing his health condition. Paul Biya, we know, has been
Ah,
concealing.
Patrice
Mugabe,
Talon, Benin.
Mugabe, Talon, Kabila. Now Kabila, that's Laurent Kabila concealed health distance, but in short, he was actually the ironic or the interesting thing about Kabila's own was when he was shot, when he was assassinated, for a while the authorities actually claimed that he was abroad for medical treatment while they were running around trying to figure out who would succeed him.
Hey, look,
Um,
it's the usual court intrigues. Nothing is ever straight. But I want to get back to that fact of it's not just the leaders when it comes to health.
it's our
It's
big man.
also it's not just big men, Cheta. It's our community. So if I go back to my prostate cancer story, so I get tested for prostate cancer because you should do it, and then I go back and I'm having a conversation with some people. I'm like, look, man, you guys are older than me. Why haven't you checked for
Tested.
yeah tested your prostate and the question was like, god, no. It ranged from god forbid to what she means, so I'm going to have someone stick a finger up my bum. So it's those it's those little societal nuances that make it so that we would do everything other than just what should be other than the preventive stuff. And then when we now get to a place where you can't hide this issue anymore and it takes a very terrible turn, suddenly you're asking yourself, how did I get here? You're praying, you're looking for the village people that have brought you to this place, when what you should have done,
The perennial scapegoats,
the
village
perennial
people.
scapegoat. But the thing is, why do we as a community have this thing against checking on our health status?
I mean, if I could give an answer to that, or if I could give a definite answer, I'll probably have won the Nobel Prize by now. Because it's something that is clearly very deeply ingrained in our psychology.
Hmm.
That need to always look strong. I don't understand why. I wish I could understand why, because it's one of those things that nobody can give you a straight answer.
Hmm.
I have actually asked people, and it comes from, I mean, you see it in things as simple as greetings. So somebody has a headache, or somebody is clearly in pain, and then you ask him, "How are you?" And instead of him to say, "Oh, I'm in pain," he'll be like,
I'm
"I'm
strong.
great. I'm strong." Yeah, that's the expression. I'm strong. Like, come on.
No, no.
So
Someone
I
has
think,
tried to. Sorry, someone has tried to tell me they were having a fever or something some time ago, and it took me a while to decode what they meant because they kept saying, so I was feeling strong, and I'm like, yeah, so that shouldn't be a cause for concern, But it took this person saying this over like 3, 4 times before I realized, oh, hang on, you just didn't want to say I was sick.
yeah. So it's I don't know where that attitude came from, but it is something that I have noticed in various parts of the continent that I've been to.
Mm,
So it's not just a Nigerian or West African thing,
mm,
and that would explain the the wide the wide geography of leaders that have pretended that Paul was well until it was clear that it was not well. I mean, you had a former president of Algeria constantly going to France, Bouteflika, before he was finally swept aside. So he was constantly going to France for treatment, but always pretending that everything was okay.
mm.
It is a problem, and I don't know. Um, it also, in my view, um, comes to one of the things that we do very well, which is cherry picking the examples that we want to pick from these people.
Mm,
The You see leaders or people of position from our neck of the woods pointing to this part of the world and saying, "Oh, why don't we do this like them? Why don't?" And then if you tell them, "Okay, why don't you declare your health status like the King of England just did?" It will suddenly be like, no, or it will just be silence. He will just move on, moving on to the next topic.
And,
There's something deeply cultural there that we need to unpack, and I don't
and the
know how we'll
problem.
begin to unpack it.
No, but there seems to be hope somewhat with our women because there's a gender gap or gender
Our women have
bias
always been better behaved than our men.
and
I mean,
smarter,
don't
smarter.
even they are better accomplished. No, let's stop this. Don't let my wife hear this.
No,
Uh, I mean, you
but
see it, for
stats.
example, in sports. For example,
Mm.
our female football teams do far better than those Baba Eagles that are trying to get to the World Cup playoffs through the back door.
As always, now there are more permutations. Oh well, if this, what, let's not talk about.
Let's
No,
move
but the
that
thing
thing.
is, but the stats show that the women generally engage with healthcare, especially around maternal health, anyway, than men do. Um, like someone told me again, one of his reasons for not trying to do a prostate check was because he was a titled man and couldn't he couldn't see
One smaller boy.
but here's the thing: when the chips are down, because an I've had an operation where I was on the operating table, butt naked, and at that point, it didn't matter to me whether it was a man, whether it was a woman, whether the person was titled or not titled. All I wanted to do was just
Was to get better.
get better, and and because of that operation, part of my healing process was that I had a catheter inserted to help me pee. And the person who put this catheter was a female doctor. I did not give a hot damn
Of
because,
course.
but the thing is, now that wasn't preventable. But right now we have there are reports of there's report of someone sadly that just felt collapsed and died because they were concealing a pre-existing condition because they wanted to feel, portray strength. There are so many issues of preventable deaths or in our communities that people are letting slide because we want to portray strength. There's also that thing. We also need to look at, this podcast may not be, there won't be time enough to look at not just the influence of culture, like in case in point, the titled man, but also faith in saying rather than
Let's not go to that one, because
yeah.
that's you will have all of them pursuing you with
No, but this is not a
with their
critique of
cocondas.
faith, because after all, I'm a person of faith, you know.
We
But the
see
thing is,
we
we
have
do
a
need to
corruption
dial
of
back a bit.
faith.
Mm,
We have a corruption of faith in our part of the world, and it gets even to people who have settled here, our communities in this part of the world, where people will keep going for healing. So I was made aware of a case in the Ghanaian community where a woman died in the Western world, and she had been ill for a very long time, cancer. But because of pastors, she did not engage with the hospital system until it was too late. She eventually engaged with the hospital system when it was stage 4, when it was pretty much too late. But she had been going to all sorts of healers, faith healing. She had gone to Ghana so many times, and then pastors so it is a problem. And one thing that I will say, we were just praising our women, but our women are more susceptible to all sorts of quacks who come as men of God than
and
our men are.
yeah. And then, but the other thing, and just quickly before we go for a break, the other thing is we know that a lot of our people are here trying to make ends meet, and perhaps we can look at that again when we talk about in the second half when we talk about the unemployment figures. But one thing that we always laugh about, but it's not a laughing matter, is when people, as we say, pick shifts. People are working back to back to back, trying, going from one, oftentimes 12-hour shift to the next, not resting. But as you said earlier, the body is a machine. And if you don't slow down to let it recover, it will force you to
If you
slow down.
don't accept even your the natural. So let me give an example. I'm in my 40s. I'm in my mid 40s. As I never. So when you keep trying to pretend that you're a young man, it's part of what we're talking about.
Middle-aged man.
So I'm in my mid 40s. Yeah. So you address it with respect. So when you talk to an Ipa in Bini, you say Ipa domo. Anyway, Wabeo. So basically, there was a point where there was I came under pressure from the wife. This is before SBM decided. So one of the projects we're working on is expanding into the UK. So I'm working on that because I come and I go. So, but before that decision was made, I was coming under some sort of from the wife to move here on a more permanent basis. So I started exploring jobs, and one thing that we should say, that we will say, is that the job market in the UK is a bit mad right now, for want of a better word. So I started looking.
We'll cover that in the second half.
I started doing job applications and all of that, and somebody told me, "Why don't you go to Amazon warehouse?" And I looked at him and I was like, it is today that I know that you don't like me. Like, you want me over 40 to come and start carrying this. And there are certain things that you just know that your body will not take it. It's just that simple.
True. So, I mean, listen to your body, but also just give yourself a breather. If you don't do that shift today,
You will not die.
You will not die. You will do it tomorrow. But really, there are cases of people. I mean, you see it all the time on Twitter. Say, "Oh, this is our brother," and sadly, it's always mostly the men. This our brother, had the 4 days back-to-back shift and suddenly just collapsed. This one, we do need to take better care of ourselves. On that note, Cheta, shall we take a break? And then when
Yes,
we
we
come
shall.
back, we'll do some deep dive into the job market. Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Cheta Wanze.
All right, Cheta, so back to one topic that you do like to talk about, and it's jobs and numbers. Recently, the unemployment report about the unemployment in the UK between August and October was released, and unemployment stands currently at 5.1%.
Hey, our unemployment in Nigeria is less.
What? But anyway,
Officially, Nigeria's unemployment is 4.2.
yeah, if you believe that, I have an airport in my backyard I want to sell you, and it works perfectly. But
Are you
anyway,
saying that our government is lying?
I'm saying that someone needs to change. Someone needs to go to Specsavers. Whoever is looking at their spreadsheet and seeing their unemployment. Anyway, look,
Okay,
let's.
okay. Before we dive into the UK's,
Yeah.
I think what I want to do is explain, because this is something that I have criticized because it's very political. So the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, what it has done, and this happened after a chap called Yemi Kane left. Yemi Kane was the head of the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics for 10 years, and he refused all sorts of political interference. They tried so many times to get him out. Now, that position, Statistician General of the Federation, is something that is, once you are there for 5 years, renewable. And unless an act of parliament, you can't just be kicked out. So they tried everything. They even went to the extent of starving the NBS of funds in order to get him to resign. He refused. He was very, 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 very rock solid that this position is very important because I need to get the government the data that will enable them to make the right decisions. But the government, the political class did not see it that way. The politicians didn't see it that way. They just saw whenever he brought out figures, they felt that he was basically
Trying to
because
embarrass them.
they will come and they'll come and say some stuff that, oh, we've done this, we've done that, and then figures will come and then people will be like, but I thought you said. So after he left, the person who was appointed was kind of more malleable for you understand. So one of the things that they did was that they switched the definition of unemployment in Nigeria from 40 hours a week to 1 hour a week. So officially, if you work an hour a week in Nigeria now, you are classified as employed.
Dear Lord.
Yeah. So what that did was that it brought down, yes, a week. So what that did was that it brought down the unemployment rate from the high 20s officially to single digits, about 4%. And that is my test talk.
And that means everyone apart from secondary school children have jobs in Nigeria.
Yes.
Wow. That was almost like when a former president rebased the economy and suddenly we were the highest
the largest economy in Africa.
Largest economy in Africa.
I mean, there was some truth to it. It's just that the structure was all wrong.
But anyway, but coming back to the UK, so whilst there's there are many reasons for what is looking like employment freezes. You're looking at the taxes. You're looking at the NI rate and all that. For me, when I was looking at it, I was trying to look at the sectors which have also had some freezes. And in the care sector, there's a job postings are reported to be down by as much as 8,000, or there are about 8,000 vacancies in that sector. And when you look at the patterns of our community, when a lot of people get here, what they do is, as a way of keeping body and soul together, most people will look for jobs in the care sector. Now, if you are looking at 8,000 vacancies, the question then is, why is that? Why are there these vacancies in this sector? And why haven't they been filled? And what does that mean for people in our community who are looking for jobs but can't seemingly find any?
So, there are so many things that's a question that needs to be unpacked in so many ways. Um, so first things first, the UK, something that they would not admit, they have a problem in terms of um the way the job market is structured.
Mm,
So you shouldn't have to apply for 500 different jobs before you get even an interview.
mm,
That's already a problem. And then politics, unfortunately, the racial politics that we're seeing is getting in the way. So the UK has large numbers of vacancies, A. B, it also has a problem that many native born British people do not want to do many of these jobs. And C, you have people on the extreme right, or far right, or even closer to the center, but on the right of the spectrum, trying to push the country back towards a gilded age kind of scenario where employers can do that. They're trying to limit employee protections.
mm,
So you see it in when you pick the newspapers, all the fights against unions and all of that. So it ultimately creates what I consider to be a sort of toxic atmosphere
mm,
where the the economy is losing jobs, and then sorry, before I forget, we cannot have this discussion nowadays without talking about the rise of AI,
mm,
because AI is also one of it's not an accident that if you look at the demographic breakdown of the data, it's the young people in entry level jobs that actually have the highest unemployment rate. I think
mm,
it's 15%, or thereabouts in the UK, while people in the mid level are kind of like 4 to 5%, and then of course those who are closer to retirement are about 3% or thereabouts.
mm,
AI is doing a lot of. I mean, I gave the example here,
mm,
even in my company in Nigeria. I've given the example on an earlier
mhm,
episode where 3 people during this year that is just ending left the job, resigned, and we only replaced one. The other two, AI does their job now. So if in an economy that is not as advanced as the UK, Nigeria, you already have this option. Imagine what it is like in the UK. There are a lot of basically what interns will do. And interns are the ones who you start them on the lower rung of the ladder and then push them up slowly. They gain experience, they know there are things there are things that AI can never do. But it's difficult to make that case to employers.
You know,
There 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 are things kind of like things that are in the background, as it were.
mm,
I don't know what language to use here. I'm struggling. But there are certain kind of nuances that a computer system will never be able to get. Just that's the great X, the great unknown.
mm.
Ihe ndị mmadụ amara. My apology. My English
So
failed me there. So
what people don't
it's
know. Mm,
yeah. So
mm.
it's that's the direct translation, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes, yes,
Um.
yes.
So it's
I mean, sorry,
it's
sorry. I can't help but just plug my Abaness here because there's a great way he said in Aba, which is Imananka, Imankozo. So literally means if you know
exactly.
this thing, do you know the other? So there's always something that you can't know it all. Yeah, sorry. I
Yes.
just had to plug the zero
I
eight two.
understand. So that's just what it is.
Mm,
Um, so you have all these little nuances that are making the job market rather funny.
mm,
But that fundamental thing that is broken. I mean, there's a very good friend of mine who moved here from Nigeria,
mm,
and at the very least, he applied for 400 jobs before he got a single call back.
mm.
It should not be that way. There's
In
something that
fact, do you know? Sorry, at one point it became a joke, to me and every other person around me who were looking for who was looking for jobs, that we will just speak to this, skip to the second paragraph, and just look for that first word. Unfortunately,
The
so
unfortunately email.
unfortunately, so it was always you will. In fact, someone advised me. I said, look, looking for a job here, it's its own full-time job.
Yeah,
So said,
I mean
spend
that's
2
something.
hours a day and say, I'm going to dedicate this to just trying to get someone's attention. It can be depression.
It can be depressing. I mean, I know this fully. So it's one of the things that I refuse to do in this iteration. Because I have a job already that I enjoy. What I had to do was to make the case back in Nigeria that it's actually a global market. We already have clients from Western clients. So why don't we try to expand into the UK? Because I was not good. I had that. So when I was much younger, in my first the first time I lived in the UK, I applied for a shed load of jobs. But as a younger person, you're a bit more resilient. You're a bit more resilient, a bit more carefree. You don't have the responsibilities of children. The kind of thing is that you can't afford to go into depression as somebody who has young children, and then they depend on you. There's a way we used to say it back in Nigeria. If not just two of you, these two newly married couples, and of course you know where I'm about to go. If not just una two, una fit sit down so Gary not in the house. But once Peking come, get what you want to. So it's just that simple. Once the children come, you just have to face up. So bottom line is, the UK job market has a problem. And like many Western countries, they are not they're not being honest about the issues. One of the first issues is capitalism, or the nature of capitalism that they're pushing towards. Second is that thing of the nature of the demography of their society is changing. And then third is they've been rich for a very long time. So there are certain kinds of jobs that their native-born populations feel are beneath them. And there's a reason why before they chased the Poles away, the Poles were overrepresented in certain kinds of jobs. Because the native British people would not do those jobs. And even when they chased the Poles away with Brexit, using the whole economic argument, did there are people rushing to fill those jobs? No, they did not.
I mean, a very stark example of this is what I would consider Zach Polanski's biggest gaffe so far, in trying to make a case for migrants.
I need to catch up on him. I haven't watched him for.
Oh no, he made.
I didn't watch him at all while I was in Nigeria.
He made a big gaffe on Question Time when he said, again, trying to make a case for migrants. He's talking about 1 in 5 care workers, are migrants. But then I said, I don't know about you, but I don't want to wipe someone else's bum. I felt, my goodness, that.
I wouldn't call that about it. He's speaking the mind of.
Oh yeah, I know, but I'm saying in terms of trying to reach out, because remember when Kemi said almost the same, or rather, when Kemi made the same statement, but in a different way, people rightly called her out for it. They're like, you know what? Why are you talking about? And she was focused mainly on Nigerians, saying Nigerians are coming here to clean people's bums. Now, talking about it, even though I understand, again, he was trying to make a case for the migrant workers, but also situating the migrant work experience or the care experience in the position of these people are coming here to clean bums, just made it look like there are 2 tiers of workers, which, if you ask people, of course there are. But it also just tells you, as you said, is a mindset that there are jobs that we can't do because maybe it's beneath us. But these guys are coming over from Africa, from Asia, from wherever, and they are the bum cleaners. Which is just quite interesting. But then when you then look at the numbers in the sector, people have said, okay, you know what, no problem. We will clean those bombs because we need to survive. We need to, as you said, it's not just you people too anymore for a lot of people. It's them, their spouse and their kids. It's not just those ones here. It's also people back home. We will clean bombs, no problem. But you then have to fill in over 100, 200 applications for a job where you have to go and literally clean bombs. So the question is,
And that is a problem.
yeah,
Because that's a very low skilled job, so you shouldn't have to be filling plenty applications for it. But it speaks to something that's and I'm going to tie it back to somewhere like Nigeria. It speaks to something that has been a problem in our own neck of the woods for a very long time: dignity of labor. So in this, at least when I was here in my earlier life before I moved back to Nigeria, there was no job that was considered beneath people, provided it puts food on the table and it was legitimate. But the fact that increasingly you see people saying, no, I can't do that, it's beneath me, it speaks to a falling the appreciation of the fact that all jobs are important to keep society functioning. That is fading away. And
but does it go back to one of the very first things? I think it was the very first episode when you made the point that all this is a fallback to the class system. Some people say, this is my class, this is where, and then the rest of you are there, and I don't know if that's a stretch.
No, it's not a stretch, but it's not necessarily it. And let me tell you why. So with the class system, or at least the way it was back in the day, there were people who were working class, and if you tried to aspire to higher, you were seen as a traitor to your class. So those people, they would clean the bombs and they would be proud of it. That's what we do. So you would see 4 generations of one family working in Tesco. But somewhere along the line, and I think so this is, again, these are things that require deeper studies. But I would say when Tony Blair's government tried to democratize university education, it's introduced a new paradigm. Because basically, why should I go to random University of Sussex, and study philosophy, then come out and go and work in the coal mines? Of course, that brings us to because the things like the coal mines were the backbone of the British working class. So you now had a situation where Margaret Thatcher broke the backs of the unions and the British working class effectively died. So all of this is a long-winded way of saying that the UK is in a transitory period and they're not handling it very well. The UK's societal structure is changing, and it's not just because of immigration. The very class system that the UK had run for hundreds of years has gone out the window. And they've not properly, at least that's the way I'm looking at it from an insider point of view. Because I have the benefit of being able to look at it from outside. Oh, by the way, Papa Eagles just scored. They're playing Egypt right now. Yeah, it's a friendly before the African Cup of Nations. Egypt was leading 1-0.
They had better try and qualify, because
They've qualified for the Cup of Nations. Now it's the World Cup they failed to qualify
they had
for.
better, or they had better try and go beyond the what do you call it, the group stage, before they start doing these useless permutations.
Well,
I'm not
watching the Cup of Nations for the first time in a long time this year, because I was so thoroughly disappointed with the World Cup qualification campaign.
I have a theory,
and I have another team now. Come on, you 3 Lions!
But I have a theory, and that the success of the Super Eagles, whichever way it goes, depends on the president in power. if you want to look at how well, I don't know, I can't tell you that this is the link, but the Super Eagles have always reflected the the effectiveness, if I can say, of the president. Think about it.
I'm not quite sure you would say that Abacha was effective.
Well, no, of course, no. In terms of democracy and human rights, and this is no, this is
The,
not
the,
me
the,
making any excuse for
the most
Abacha, but
successful period in Super Eagles history is arguably
was
under Abacha.
I know, but I'm saying economically at least, and
We were
again,
doing
God,
poorly economically.
I,
When they won the Nations
I'm
Cup
almost.
in 1994,
Mm,
inflation was 72%.
oh well, because I don't want to make it look like I'm making excuses for Abacha, because God forbid. Well,
We've we've
at least we
generally
did better.
stumbled. Our football,
We
our
did better
football has
under Obasanjo.
no, under Obasanjo, we came second in the Nations Cup. We didn't win. Okay, no, we won age grade tournaments, but that doesn't count.
Yeah,
We
but
came,
then look at the presidents after him
so we won
and
the
the
Nations Cup
performance.
under Jonathan.
Right. Well, I almost want to say that makes my point, because Jonathan was almost. Mhm. I wanted to say almost a sense. You know what?
See, the three times Nigeria have won the Nations Cup under Shagari,
Mm.
who is up there as one of the worst presidents ever,
Mm-hmm.
under Abacha, the absolute worst, and then under Jonathan, who is probably the second best president we ever had.
Mm.
The best president we ever had, in my opinion, is Obasanjo, and we
Yep.
didn't win squat under him. We
We,
came
we,
close.
we were building the team then.
Oh, please, come on. The only thing that I will agree is that Cameroon robbed us, because that was what Cameroon did to us, was robbery. So
Oh well, see. Now. You see, if you draw the parallel between football and our presidency, it was also under Obasanjo that Cameroon got got Bakassi. Mm.
so Obasanjo was forming international statesman and obey. I think that's the one thing I hold against him. We should have invaded Cameroon.
Oh, you have listeners in Cameroon. Do you want to? Do you want to tell them that you
We
wanted
are
to invade?
supposed to be the regional hegemon. We should have invaded Cameroon, taken Bakassi and taken Ambazonia. And I'll stand on that any day. I have colleagues at SBN, we have colleagues from
Anyway,
Cameroon.
no. But interestingly, I met a Cameroonian recently who is actually quite bitter because they were in Bakassi, and he sort of like still wishes they were back in Nigeria. But you know what? It's
You should have told him that he's silly. They voted in 1961 to go out of Nigeria and join Cameroon.
so
There was a
Obasanjo
plebiscite.
so Obasanjo respected that vote. Why would you
It
want
was
him
null
to?
and void.
Why?
If I was president, I would have taken. It's just that Nigeria is not in a position to
See
do
now
it
you're showing your
anymore.
dictatorial.
If I was
It's
president, I would have
Christmas.
taken.
Don't be the dictator at Christmas.
Please, come on.
But anyway, look, Cheta, we've taken this, and it's been quite a fun one. I know, is there any? Uh, do you have any? How do I say any last words? Do you have any closing thoughts as we close down the podcast for the year, and as we just reflect on our community and how politics in the UK affects us?
So, based on the two topics that we talked about, to a large extent, I think the first thing I would say to people is take your health very seriously.
Mm.
Don't hide. Listen, we're not supermen. We are men. We're normal human beings, which means we will always fall sick. Last year, I spent half the time in hospital. I was really ill last year. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. Your health status you should be open about it, so that if anything they do you, people will detect it quick and it will be sorted quickly. On the employment thing, especially for the younger ones, take heart. It's easy. So some of these things, funny enough, like health, it's easy to become isolated. So if you keep getting all those rejections, you're applying for jobs, you keep getting the rejections, it's very easy to become disheartened, and say, oh, don't just keep trying, keep on keeping on.
Mm.
There I think it's 900,000 young people in the UK who are now in the job market actively seeking work and have been unable to find. You are not alone.
And that's that. Well, I don't know if there's anything else or any more that can be added to that. What I'll just say is, look, man, it's Christmas. Take some time to rest. Take some time to, let your body just rest. There'll be more opportunities for this hustle in the new year.
And
But
if you
for
live in a
now,
house that has a chimney, Santa is coming.
aha, so have a merry Christmas to everyone, and we'll see you in the new year.
We'll see you in the new year.